de investigación en la Universidad de Stanford. En este momento, el profesor Maxime, que es profesor en EPF, es una escuela de ingenieros en SO, cerca a París, y también es un investigador en el Instituto de Biomecánica Humana George Arcand. Él ha hecho clases, ha enseñado en el SAM de París, en la Escuela Militar Superior Científica y Técnica de París, en el Instituto Nacional de Kinesioterapia y en el Liceo Pierre de en París. Hoy nos va a mostrar un poco sobre un grupo de escuelas de ingeniería en Francia, sobre su escuela con la que estamos haciendo un convenio desde la Escuela Colombiana de Ingeniería, que está abierta a todas las ingenierías, y luego un poco de su investigación. Y la presentación va a ser mitad en español, mitad en inglés.
Gracias, Marcela, para la presentación. Y, ¿quién aquí no habla inglés? Claro, ¿y quién habla aquí en francés? ¿Quién habla? Lo que vamos a hacer es la presentación de la escuela y la colaboración con la Escuela de Ingeniería Colombiana. Me voy a presentar en español y después la presentación de la investigación me voy a presentar en inglés. Bueno, estoy trabajando en la escuela que se llama EPF, que es una escuela de ingeniería que es un grupo que se llama un grupo de 8 escuelas de ingeniería en Francia, que son todos aquí y son en toda la Francia. Y por ejemplo, la escuela de EPF está en el SO o en Montpellier. Todas esas escuelas tienen muchas especialidades que son aquí para, por ejemplo, mecánicos, sistemas de vehículos, adaptación, transporte, construcción y data sciences, es una industrial, y también la salud, aquí, que está mi especialización. Y me voy a presentar más detalles. La escuela donde soy profesor, que es EPF. Y Marcela lo dice, tenemos un acuerdo con nosotros en la escuela para cambiar a los estudiantes y también para jugar. Aquí el EPF es en 3 diferentes grupos. Y voy a presentar este escuela. Primero, la historia de las valores de la escuela son muy históricas, porque fue una de las primeras escuelas de ingeniería donde las mujeres pueden ir, pero realmente los hombres pueden hacer los estudios desde 1994. Y las valores de la escuela son principalmente la educación, la de emprender y el compromiso, que son valores más importantes que tienes que hacer. Y voy a presentar rápidamente los 3 enfoques que tenemos para esta escuela. El primero es el más principal, que es en SO. Es cerca de París y tiene 1.200 estudiantes y es el más importante de las escuelas. Y este campus va a ir en el otro plaza para estar más grande y si fuera 4 más durante que es actualmente. Montpellier es en el sur parte de Francia y es más pequeña, tiene 5 cientos de estudiantes. Y por fin, en el campus de Troyes es el último campus y tiene 300 estudiantes aquí. Y voy a presentar un poco de la educación en esta escuela. Porque en Francia tenemos diferentes instituciones que pueden hacer diplomas. Tenemos las universidades y tenemos las escuelas de ingeniería. Y es diferente porque, por ejemplo, en las universidades tienen clases con 200 estudiantes. En las escuelas de ingeniería tenemos exactamente 30 estudiantes. Entonces, las escuelas de ingeniería son muy personalizadas para los estudiantes. Y un poco de presentación de la UTP, es una escuela de ingeniería y en Francia para tener el título de ingeniero debe hacer una certificación con una comisión que se llama CDI, que es una comisión de los títulos de ingeniería, y que es la comisión dice si está buena educación y para tener una diploma que está considerada como un máster. Esta escuela es en 5 años, directamente después del baccalaureat en Francia. La escuela es creo que es de bachillerato. ¿Qué? Entonces, los tres primeros años son las clases de las ingeniería, las matemáticas, física, química. Management, ingeniería y la salud, donde soy el responsable de esto, energía y ambiente, que es en Montpellier, y las construcciones, que es en Troyes. Y aquí las construcciones son especialidad en las nuevas materiales para las construcciones, para esta biomecánica. Y tenemos también una máster que es especialidad en para las personas que quieren hacer una empresa. Y les acompañamos a los estudiantes para hacerlo. Este es el más importante. La especialización de la salud que estoy responsable. Entonces, tenemos cursos que están para las bases de las ingeniería en la salud. Por ejemplo, la biología, las imágenes médicas. ¿Sí?
Imágenes médicas.
Sí, las biotecnología y el estudiante debe escoger entre un curso que está más focalizado para los sistemas de informaciones. Por ejemplo, las Internet of las cosas, las Big Data, Machine Learning, data, ingeniería de los datos. O se puede hacer un curso que es más especializado en la biomecánica para las prótesis, la robótica, la biomecánica para los deportes, por ejemplo. Y, por ejemplo, el último año, hacemos un proyecto que está un proyecto de pie de prostética para los niños, y los estudiantes deben hacer todo el proyecto y la concepción en la informática, las simulaciones en las Biomedical modeling, las simulaciones, y deben hacer la prostética en 3D printing, y después hacemos los testos mecánicas para conocer si las prostéticas fueron bien o no. Hay una testa de compresión y una testa de movimiento. Y esta solución es una solución de estos estudiantes del máster. Y en nuestra escuela tenemos diferentes innovaciones para la pedagogía. No sé cómo decir esto en español, pero espero que puede traducir.
Juegos serios, clase invertida, aprendizaje mixto, que es entre el aprendizaje tradicional y técnicas nuevas de aprendizaje, autoaprendizaje con plataformas colaborativas donde los estudiantes pueden aprender por ellos mismos, solución de problemas complejos y educación basada en proyectos que ellos hacen durante todo el semestre.
Gracias. Y lo que hacemos es, para los estudiantes, es aprender cómo aprender. Pienso que es una capacidad para los ingenieros, y pienso que es lo que hace ahí. Espero. Creo. Y tenemos clases en inglés. Por ejemplo, la biología de espacio es en inglés, la management es en inglés también, la energía y ambiente es en inglés también. Tenemos el máster de innovación que es en inglés también, y todos los estudiantes tienen un proyecto que está internacional. Tenemos reglados cursos que están también en inglés. Todos los otros cursos son en francés. No hay actualmente curso en español. Tenemos diferentes relaciones con diferentes escuelas, como aquí en Biomedical, Germany y Estados Unidos. Y también en España, en Canadá, y estamos actualmente empezando un acuerdo con esta escuela. Y voy a presentar un poco después lo que hacemos para este acotamiento. Y tenemos muchas profesoras que están también haciendo una investigación en mecánica, energía y ambiente. Y biomecánica, que está en un poco de mecánica. Y para la empleabilidad de nuestros estudiantes, 95% de los estudiantes tienen una experiencia profesional hasta 4 meses después del título. Y son en la consultoría, las movilidades y las digitales principalmente. Y lo que hacemos es, tenemos muchas relaciones con las empresas. Los estudiantes deben hacer una pasantía,
Sí.
diferentes pasantías en todos estos cursos, que puede ser en la empresa o en el laboratorio. Y tenemos también profesores que son de diferentes empresas. Y lo que hacemos es tener para cursos profesores del mundo profesional y profesores del mundo de investigación. Y ayudamos a los estudiantes para tener una primera experiencia. Y tenemos una hackathon y pensamos que podemos hacer una hackathon internacional con vosotros. Y hablar un poco de lo que, porque todo no es el trabajo de los estudiantes. Tenemos muchas asociaciones, por ejemplo, deportes o lo que hacemos es, para las personas que tienen muchas relaciones con la asociación, validamos un poco los cursos, porque pensamos que es muy importante de tener una posición en la asociación también. Y también tenemos para los estudiantes facilidades para la habitación y para comer, por ejemplo. Es la Francia. Y somos muy implicados en las internacionales, porque todos los estudiantes deben hacer una movilidad internacional de 5 meses, 6 meses, 5 meses o más, un semestre. Y tenemos igual títulos, tenemos estudiantes extranjeros. Y tenemos diferentes versiones con China, África, Vietnam y también. Y tenemos profesores que están de extranjero. Por ejemplo, con nuestro acordamiento tenemos que Marcela y Carlos se van a Francia para hacer un curso de robótica. Porque estamos escribiendo una colaboración con nuestra escuela para los profesores para hacer proyectos en común. Y pensamos que podemos hacer diferentes proyectos pedagógicos en común. Y también tenemos un parte de esta colaboración que puede estar para los estudiantes. Y, por ejemplo, actualmente, los estudiantes pueden ir a Francia o ir a Colombia para todos los semestres. Y no deben pagar más que como si fuera en la escuela de ingeniería. Sí. Un problema es que todos nuestros, nunca nuestros programas son en español, pero tenemos programas en francés y en inglés. Y estamos trabajando para que vosotros puedan hacer las escuelas de interno para aprender más ampliamente el francés. Y si un estudiante quiere hacer una dual titulación, se debe pagar las escuelas, pero puede hacer las dos títulos, pienso, en el mismo tiempo. Si quieres más informaciones, tenemos contactos de la Asociación Internacional que están principalmente Stefan Zayon y Sophie Delis, quienes son los en París. Entonces, muchas gracias. Esta es la presentación para la escuela. Si tienen una pregunta, se puede hacerlo ahí.
Chicos, dos cosas. La primera es que los contactos que tuvimos en general de la escuela, pero como estamos haciendo el acuerdo entre la escuela de Maxime y nuestra escuela, también pueden tener información aquí con Pablo, con Ana, que si no la conocían, Ana es una asistente de la Oficina de Relaciones Internacionales que maneja toda la parte francófona, o conmigo. Entonces también pueden tener información. Pero aprovechen este espacio si tienen alguna pregunta sobre la escuela, en español, o en inglés, o en francés. Pueden hacerlo.
¿Cuáles son los requerimientos?
Digamos, por ahora, como apenas se está escribiendo el acuerdo, no hay todavía los requerimientos formales, serían los requerimientos de todas las movilidades internacionales para la escuela. Institucionalmente tienen que tener el examen de inglés y pues un mínimo de calidad académica, un examen de prueba, y dependiendo del programa ya vamos a empezar a abrir los requerimientos, porque van a haber unos de los que es suficiente con inglés y otros de los que ya se va a exigir un nivel de francés.
Respecto a los programas que decías, las carreras no son iguales, ¿no? Vemos cada carrera tiene su especialización. Ingeniería como en medio ambiente y que hay pues especial en biomedical y no como ingeniería biomédica que es aquí en Colombia.
Lo que pasa es que es diferente en Francia y en Colombia. En Francia, como él explicó, los ingenieros tienen los 3 primeros años en común. La escuela de él es orientada más o menos a mecánica y un poco electrónica. Pero luego tienen especialidad, o sea, igual de todas maneras ustedes ven que ustedes ya de mecánica, electrónica, biomecánica, en los 3 primeros años casi lo mismo. Y ahí serían en esos 2 últimos años en los que se puede hacer el intercambio. Acá Maxime, ahorita pueden ver al final, tiene información sobre las diferentes especialidades que mostró, pero ahí ya sería como caso por caso mirar, porque sería el semestre, podrían hacer un semestre académico o un año, y mirarían en qué especialidad lo harían dependiendo del programa. Esto es desde el 7º semestre.
Y digamos que nosotros tenemos como valor que no alcanzamos la maestría o algo.
No. Dentro del acuerdo no, porque ya como ustedes no son estudiantes regulares de la escuela, no podrían homologar nada aquí, pero también se podría ver qué oportunidades podemos encontrar para los estudiantes de grado. Vamos que este acuerdo lo estamos empezando este año. En escuela de verano algunos de ustedes vieron cursos por el profesor Tomás Pro, que vino de la escuela de Maxime. Entonces estamos empezando el acuerdo, pero todavía pues, falta la firma oficial del acuerdo para que empecemos a trabajar con esos casos específicos. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Creo que yo no sé si quedó claro en la manera de una reunión y yo participé en una interesante, yo no sé si quedó claro que el acuerdo permite que ustedes puedan estar un año allá pagando el semestre acá, ustedes pagarían 2 semestres y el primer máximo, mínimo sería un semestre. Y lo que planteaban ellos es que, por ejemplo, los que hagan un año, el primer semestre podrían hacer una práctica en una empresa de research and development, o sea, una empresa de desarrollo. Ellos les consiguen la práctica, o sea, usted llega directamente a hacer la práctica en la empresa y el siguiente semestre pueden hacer investigación o cursos, ¿cierto? Que les homologarían acá, o investigación como un trabajo de grado. A mí me parece eso fabuloso porque sería un año en París, que pues saben que es uno de los puntos más turísticos y tecnológicos, y tendrían acceso a empresas de alto nivel y también a una escuela de alto nivel que les van a homologar todo acá. Entonces, el que quiera hacer el paquete del año sería súper bueno, no tiene que pagar más. Ten en cuenta que es una escuela privada que es relativamente costosa, pero por el acuerdo ustedes no pagan matrícula ya. Entonces,
incluso pagan menos matrícula cash. Por los acuerdos de movilidad internacional tendrían un descuento en la matrícula acá como una forma de apoyo de la escuela a su movilidad. No estoy segura del acuerdo, pero creo que pagan apenas el 20% de la matrícula. Y lo único que no es preciso de lo que dice es que no les homologan todo. La homologación de materias es caso por caso, lo que vean allá y la disponibilidad de créditos que tienen ustedes acá. Si no han visto las selectivas, ahí tienen la posibilidad de homologar todas las selectivas que les falten, pero digamos que ya para homologar materias obligatorias tendrías que estudiar con los decanos caso por caso.
O lo hacen solo un semestre, ¿no? Que podría ser un trabajo.
O podría ser un semestre de trabajo.
Materias, o no sé si solo la práctica también.
¿Eso se puede?
Es una oportunidad muy buena porque tienen acceso a, yo estoy viendo la lista de empresas con las que trabajan, no sé, en las otras áreas de biomedical están las empresas top de investigación y desarrollo, y sería muy interesante para la práctica. Él también, bueno, ahora viene la otra parte, que él también trabaja en investigación en otro instituto, que es uno de los más reconocidos en Europa en biomecánica, que eso también es interesante porque pueden hacer estancias en el instituto de investigación, ¿no? Que eso apenas se va a ver el convenio, pero digamos paralelo, que también lo manejarían con Maxime.
Chicos, ¿alguna otra pregunta?
Podemos hablar después con los estudiantes que quieren hacer una movilidad, quieren hacer más estimaciones para la movilidad y función. Pero voy a empezar la presentación de las instituciones. Y voy a presentar en inglés. Pero si quieres, si está en un problema de hablar en inglés, es posible de hacerlo lentamente o... Okay. Well, so currently in my research, I more focus on movement analysis, and in particular, movement analysis for sports biomechanics and also for handicap biomechanics. So as you know, in research, nothing is done by only one person. It's always a collaborative work. So here you have my main collaborators in my research I perform, and this is some pictures I would like to show you now. So the main, I will present you one of the main projects I have been involved in, which is a project with the French Federation of Golf, basically. And so for this project, I have some different grants, like from the French Minister of Research, from the Institute, and also we have some collaboration with different companies. For example, Trackman tickets. I don't know if someone are familiar with golf, but it's kind of famous ones in this field, and ESN, which is really famous for medicine. But just some context to begin with. So the golf is played by very various people, and around the world there is about 60 million regular players. In France, because I was in France for this project, we have almost 400,000 people which are licensed in the federation, and there is more than 1,200 players which are considered as professional players. And so they are looking for more performance, and this is their job actually. So they do it like 40 hours a week. So they're very, very various skills. Like parameters, it can be assessed by the handicap, which is between 54 and 0, meaning that they can do all the curves in like a professional guy. For professional, there is no handicap. So just maybe you are not familiar with this sport. So golf is really it's composed of different movements, but the key movement is a golf swing, which is done for the long distances, which could be about 200 meters. It is very fast because it occurs about 1 second, and it's really asymmetric. It could be decomposed into 4 different phases. The first phase, which is address, which is actually the moment the player is preparing himself, just focusing on the ball. The backswing, where the player is getting back the club beside him. The downswing, which is the phase where the player accelerates the club, which finishes with the impact. And then directly after, there is a follow-through, where you slow down the club. And this swing can be performed with wood club or irons. Both are for a different movement. So it is a very with a sport with various beginnings. Like it is a very high kinetic movement for the swing. It needs a lot of balance, proprioception, and focus. And also you have to walk about 10 kilometers during a day, which occurs during about 3 or 4 hours. So some publications have written that the golf have really some benefits on physical and mental health. And some surgeons recognize to do some golf after chronic low back pain or after hip surgery. But on the other side, the golf have been shown to have some injuries on pain. And the body says that there is 2 injuries per 1,000 hours of game. So imagine for a very professional player. And the 2 main areas where the injury are located is lumbar spine, which is currently the first cause of professional players to stop his career, and the shoulder. So it was swing was considered as an athletics movement, and it was linked to a lack of warm-up or too intensive training. So there is a kind of controversy between these benefits and these injuries. And this controversy is mainly due to a lack of understanding of what's happening during this movement. So the main issue of this presentation would be like to improve biomechanical understanding of the swing for improving performance without injury. So just to have a global overview of the approach we perform for movement analysis, we have a generic model, generic geometric model, and we have to personalize it to have a subject-specific geometry of the model. With the kinematic data, we can estimate the articular kinematics, meaning that, for example, for the elbow, we need to understand how much the elbow is flexing or extending. After that, with the measurement of external forces and with the knowledge of maximum inertias, you can have an articular dynamics. With the knowledge of where the muscles are, you can estimate the muscle elongations and so the muscle forces which have been done for having this movement. And after that, as soon as you have all the information, you can do a local modeling with a finite element modeling, for example, to have intra-articular stresses, stress and strain. And this would be done for, would be useful for performance and health, but for the moment, I focus more about performance and those 3 first steps. So, first I will begin with a quick overview of the biomechanical knowledge of the golf swing. So to that, we did a systematic review. So we request into the 3 main databases this request actually. And it was, we consider about 700 papers. So we remove duplicates, we exclude some papers which were not relevant for the biomechanics, such as robotics, for that moment was not our interest, cutting, and so on. And so we study 133 papers, and we sort them into methodology, kinematics, geometry, forces, kinetics, and mechanical energy. So I will present you now what there is a conclusion of this systematic review. First, just for the method point of view, we many papers deal with movement measurements with an optoelectronic system, mainly, which is actually considered as a gold standard for the movement analysis. But some papers deal with electrogonimeter and electromagnetic system. Concerning the marker set, it was really minimalist. Less than one marker per segment, so it's not enough. And it was mainly focused on drivers club, and it was mainly focused on performance, sometimes in electrometallurgy. And the performance was considered as a club speed. The number of students was from 1 to 308 for shoe and arm in 2010. Considering the first element of the geometries, first something which is often considered is the plane of movement, which is the plane where the segment evolves. And it is a 2D approach, but it was really questioned recently because the club head was shown to be outside of this plane as about 50 centimeters. Another plane is currently used. This is a plane here, which is the plane of evolution of the club head, and it was computed from backswing to downswing. And it was shown that the trajectory of the club head is an ellipse in this, and they use often the least square method. So there is two kind of approach. The movement plane is for having a 2D simple approach, and the functional plane for having an approach more accurate project. And for another geometrical parameter which is often used is the X factor, which is basically the dissociation between the shoulder and the pelvis girdle, and is completed at the beginning of the downswing, because this phase. It was shown to be linked to the performance, but with positive correlation or with a negative correlation. So it's kind of controversy again. It was sometimes linked to low back pain apparition, and the values were quite different between publications. So just to begin with how is it completed, it could have different definitions, like two definitions between thorax or shoulder with the pelvis, with those 2 points here on the acromions, or the points with the thorax. And it is expressed in a plane, because in 3D, an angle would not be described by only one parameters. We have to define it into a plane. And so they take into account the horizontal plane or the swing plane. So there is kind of a lack of consensus for these kind of parameters. And the sternoclavicular joint, which is the one between the clavicle of the thorax, is quite never taken into account. Concerning the kinematics, it is often computed that the kinematic sequence, which is like basically the sequence where the different segments have their maximum rotation, and is supposed to be proximal to distal sequence. For example, here's the pelvis, trunk, arm, and club for this guy. But there is no consensus of the segment choice. Often it is the pelvis, trunk, and forearm. Sometimes take into account the non-leading arm, head, shoulders, arm, and club. And there is never taken into account the lower limbs. Also, the computation of the speed is not consensual. There is no consensus for it, because sometimes they used to take into account the speed norm. Sometimes they take into account the increasing weight of the articular kinematics, and sometimes the longitudinal speed. So, once again, there is no methodological consensus, and the difference between all the peaks are really small, such as 50 milliseconds. For the articular kinematics, the methods are very detailed. The ISB recommendations are not taken into account, and often the complex articulations, such as shoulders, are just globally approached. Okay. So it drives to very various results. And for example, for the hip studies, there is 11 of it, but only one gives articular kinematics in terms of rotational, internal and external rotation, flexion, extension, and adduction, which is basically the parameters you are looking on when you want to have movement analysis. But it was shown that the wrist kinematic is really important, and the increasing of deviation of the wrist would drive to an improvement of performance, and this delay also improve the performance. So, considering the ground mentioned forces, mainly the vertical forces are taken into account, and it was shown that it was more on the non-leading foot during the backswing, more on the leading foot during the downswing, and there is a fast transfer of forces for the professional players. Few studies have taken into account the horizontal plane and horizontal forces, and approximately, I think, yeah, very few of them have taken into account the free moment under each foot. So all the elements of the mechanical torsor are already taken into account when they study the ground motion forces. I don't. Do you use this word torsor in your engineering classes? So, I think it's a French way of repeating things. But just to take into account all the forces of the mechanical forces, and also all the moments into all the directions. And it's a mathematical way of writing that. So basically, this means that we application just focus on one element and not for all the elements. And for dynamics, the maxes and inertia are never precise. And there is just normal spine are shown to have 150 Newton meter during the downswing by this purification. So methodologies for this are specifically detailed, and there is really a fragmented data for this kind of approach. For the energy point of view, it could be a good possibility to have an harmonization of the approach, because it doesn't depend on the frame you express it, basically. And a few publications have spoken about this, and they show that the mechanical engine peak was just before the impact for professionals, and sometimes it was considered to be at the same time for all segments. And Barry and collaborators say that the increase of power could drive to increase of injury risk. And once again, methodology are sparsely detailed, there is no consensus, and the data are really fragmented. So, to sum up, there is some concept movement, which is well known while the study is swing. They used to have some parameters such as the X factor, which is supposed to be a performance parameter. Also, the sequence, which is a geometric sequence proximal to this time, which is supposed to be the theoretical, more efficient sequence. The ground motion forces are described, but the moments are rarely taken into account. There is a problem with the methodology for the articular kinematics and dynamics. And analytic is a potential uniformization possibility and justification for injury, but the methods are rarely described. So just to sum up, there is this literature review. We can say that the methodology are globally sparsely detailed. There is no consensus once again, and data are quite fragmented. So the objective of this project was to first do an overview, which is presented here. So now we are going to define and realize methodology for analyzing these movements and to propose new performance indicators for this movement. So I'll begin with the experiment setup. So basically, the experiment setup was validated by an ethics committee. We involved 34 volunteers, which were which average age was 45 years old, with a standard deviation of 18. They were all right-handed. There is 11 professional players and 24 amateurs, and divided into 6 different categories to differentiate the skills. With a performance criterion, which was the mean travel speed at impact during all the acquisition of the during the session. So the experimental session was like that. So first they witness to inform the consent, they answer a kind of survey. We equip them with markers. They do their personal warm-up. We did some swings to adapt to the equipment and some adjustment for the different devices. And then we performed some swings, which were measured in a movement analysis room, which is here in our lab. So we have 12 cameras. We use 2 force plates, one under each foot, which measure basically all the mechanical forces and moments between the ground and the foot. They use their personal clubs, driver and clubs. We have trackman radar, which is commercial radar for golf measurements, and we measure performance with it. And we use a marker set, which is basically one we develop in the lab to have a full body estimation of the movement. So I don't know if all of you are familiar with the movement analysis, but actually you use markers which are stick on the different segments. Those markers are tracked with this kind of camera, which is basically here back in the camera. So there is a pulse of infrared information, which is reflected with this marker. And as soon as the marker is seen by 2 cameras, you can have the position into 3D. And so you can estimate, you can have it here in 3D, the position of all the markers of the body. Here is static, but it will be during the most. And so with all those markers, you can have the position of the different angles into 3D, and possibility to have 3 angles between segments, depending on the model. So basically, as soon as you have different segments, you define where the markers are on this segment. And there is an international consensus for movement analysis that define different frames for segments and for joints in order to have the same articular kinematics for a given version. For example, for the hip, the frame is based on pelvic iliac crisps, femoral head centers, condyles, and acetabulum. Let's see here. And of course, you may wonder how do you put a marker on the femoral head, because it is basically inside the body. So here, always you have to do some modeling in order to estimate where is this position. And so with these different frames, you can define the different angles like flexion extension, abduction adduction, and internal external rotation with this frame and with this consensus. And you have this kind of consensus for all the articulations, all the joints. So basically, you have here the measurement, the guy you measure. Here there is all the markers you track, and after you have to define the model in order to have the particular kinematics. So basically, the first approach, the simplest approach, is to scale every joint, every segment of your model with the marker you have put on your volunteer. And basically, it will depend. It will highly depend on the quality of your position of the marker on your bones. But this is a really good approximation first. And this is quite fast, but moderately accurate. So because you have some assumption here. And we have a really specific marker set. For example, we use shoulder clusters and capital marker, which is not really often used. But as golf was assumed to be a movement with a lot of shoulder involved, we decided to add these kind of markers. And so this was supposed to be video, but it's not working. You have the kinematics of the markers, and you can estimate the articular kinematics. We did all those swings in the link protocol, but I will focus today only on the 10 first driver swing. So, just to sum up with this approach, so the personalizing data which were taken into account was the static data. The kinematic data were performed with the Viking system once again, and the external forces were taken with force plates. So we can have all those articular, kinematic, and then dynamic data. So now I will focus on the modeling, modeling. The approach we use is multi-body kinematics optimization. So basically, you define first a model that you have to personalize, of course. But you define this model is composed of different segments. Degrees of freedom linked between which link the different segments. You have to define marker positions within those segments. And if you want to have the vessel construction, you have to define vessel dispositions. You combine this model with the measurements of your markers. And the algorithm we use is multi-body kinetic optimization. Basically, it minimizes the difference between the measured markers and the marker you have in the model. And so it moves all the degrees of freedom in order to be the closest to the measurement. This approach was proved to reduce the soft tissue artifact, which is one of the main source of instabilities in this kind of approach. And which is really important is that we take into account the articular constraint, meaning that you cannot have several translations between articulation, for example, or some kind of unphysiological movements. And we used OpenSim software, which is a software developed by Stanford. So when we created this model, actually there is only one full body model within the literature, which was composed of 21 segments and 30 degrees of freedom, which have a good description of the lumbar mobility. As you can see here, you can decompose the rotation between the thorax and the pelvis with linear function, multilinear function into the spine. But this full model has some problem because the shoulder was just considered as a glenohumeral joint. And so the same year, another model was created by Seth, and it described the shoulder with the glenohumeral joint, but also with scapulothoracic joint and sternocapitular joints. This model was unilateral. So we decided to use this model to make it bilateral during a workshop. And we fused it with the model developed by Rad to have a full body model with 25 segments, 38 degrees of freedom, which have a good description of the lumbar spine and the shoulders. And we use this model for the golf and for the manual wheelchair propulsion, and we published two after that. And the bilateral sacrothoracic joint was published on the Synthetica website, which is a website of Stanford for this software. So basically, we here changed the model we take into account, a bit more accurate. So let's go to the different analysis. First, geometry and kinematics. So with the criterion we show that there is kind of a correlation between the handicap and the criterion we have for the performance. And so the categories, the distribution of all the subjects into the 6 categories was like this. So between 3 and 5 people per each category. with an amplitude of 3 meters per second. The specific moments which were taken into account was the address end, which is when the club began to move, the top of backswing when the club changed direction, the impact when the club came back to the first position, and the mid follow through when the club is horizontal. So this was the definition of the different phases, and we compute the trajectory length, which was the discrete curvilinear summation of the position of the club head. So we saw that the backswing was quite fast, like 1 second. The downswing was 0.3 seconds with a very small standard deviation, which was in accordance to the literature. And the length was more squared, like we have 5 meters of length, and with a standard deviation of 1.5. And we think that, and this is one study we are still doing now, is that the professional golfer that's here on the here is the professional, here is the amateur. So you see that the trajectory of the club head is quite the same at the backswing and the downswing. And the professional is reducing the radius of his trajectory when he is doing the downswing. We think that it is a matter of inertial optimization, because in this position, the club is more close to the body, so the apparent inertia is less than in this configuration. This is an assumption. And maybe the increase of amplitude would increase the X factor. So we take into account all the definition of the literature for the X factor. Yeah, and we have this kind of results. So you saw that there is not that much correlation between the X factor defined in the horizontal plane for the dissociation between thorax and pelvis, because it's 0.63 for the linear correlation. And for the X factor with the shoulder and pelvis, 0.34, is worst. But this is correlated with the several application. But if you take into account the swing plane, it's again kind of not really correlated to the performance. So if we show the other result with the categories, you can see that there is kind of a gap between the, let's say, the less skilled players and the more skilled players in the two categories, like thorax pelvis and shoulder pelvis dissociation, meaning that apparently when you want to increase your performance, first you improve your X factor in the matter of dissociation between thorax and pelvis, and then you dissociate more the shoulder and the pelvis. And so this says also that you have to take into account all the joints in the shoulder, basically. And maybe these two parameters could show the prevalence of the injury over the spine or over the shoulder. Yeah, as I told you, there is different prediction. We speak about the kinematic sequence. So we concluded also with the two definitions, like the rotational speed correlated to the normal plane and the longitudinal rotation speed. So here I will show the result with this kind of graph. So you have the number of subjects which have this segment. So we look at this appearing first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And we do that for all the segments. So you ask if the sequence is the one theoretical one, you will have first here with all the players, the second here for the players, and third here with the, and so on, which is not the case. And this was for the best categories of players, so that we assume the best players would have this sequence that is that. And this is even worse when you take into account the amateurs. If you see that the temporal evolution of this speed, you can see that there is with the different maximum are really close one to another, which means that this kind of sequence is really hard to identify, and it's really dependent to the methodology, because of course here you have some parameters, so meaning that maybe these peaks are not in that order, really. And so we have really different patterns for all the different players. And if you take into account the longitudinal rotation speed, it's more close to the theoretical sequence, but it remains not really a performance criterion. And for example, if you take into account just one guy and you use the two definitions of the literature, you can see here in the temporal evolution that there is a really lot of difference. So it's really dependent of the method you use. And actually, we compute all the method to show that it's also methodological dependent, and it is submitted to a journal entry. Well, to sum up, just to take into account all the players, whatever the skill were, have the same duration for the downswing, but have different distances for the trajectory. The X factor was really different to the methodology take into account, and it's really moderately linked to performance. And it could be linked with injury, depending on the shoulder or the thorax definition. For the rotational speed, we have various methodologies, and the results are really dependent on the methodology taken into account. And so we decided not to take into account this as a performance criterion. So let's go to the dynamics of mechanical energy now. So the objective was to define a global criteria for having this information of dynamics. So actually we use the mechanical information of the forces on each foot. We compute with the model the evolution of the center of mass during the moment, and we define the swing plane with the methodology we described earlier. And so with that, we were able to define within the center of mass what was the motor moment, so the moments in the center of mass taken collinear to the normal of the plane, swing plane. And we can decompose all this information with 6 different components, like the free moments, the horizontal plane moments, and the vertical plane forces. And so this is the result. So you can see that all the players have this kind of the same type of description. And what is interesting that the free moments, which were you cannot see them because these are too small over there, were taken into account really rarely. And what they were taken into account is just the free moment and not the moment described in the center of mass, meaning that you take into account only negligible components of the moments. So we think that we should take into account more information, such as horizontal, and not only vertical but also horizontal forces. And if you take this into account, so here is the figure taken from this literature article. If you just estimate the center of mass, you can see that during the backswing, the forces from the dominant foot have a line of action going through the center of mass, and the line of action of the non-leading foot is not going to the center of mass, meaning that there is a lever arm here, and you have the global moment that way, meaning the movement will be that way also. So if you do the same kind of approach for the different forces, you can see that in the transition, this force goes to the center of mass, and this one is not going to the center of mass, meaning that the global moment would be in that way, and so the moment would be that way. And so you can do that for all the different phases, meaning that we describe, with this motor moment approach, you can describe the pattern of the forces in vertical and horizontal plane. So just to have an overview of what the motor moment gives us, it was there is very similar strategy between all golfers, even for amateurs and professionals. They manage to explain the one-motion process or limitations, but it seems not to be enough to explain the performance. So if we try to go to the kinetics, sorry. So here I told you that there is some articular dynamics, but you can also compute the kinetic moment if you compute here not the articular kinematics but the segmental kinematics, right? Okay. And so basically we show that this kinematic motor moment was more linked to the performance than was all the other parameters, with a correction of 0.85. So just as there is really a wide literature of this kind of approach, but there is a lack of consensus, and there is a lot of imprecision for the methodology, driven to a difference of meaning of all the components they are taking into account. We developed a new experimental setup, and we developed a database for the spring and for movement analysis approach. And we show that the geometrical and kinematical parameters, which were widely used in the literature, were not enough. But the performance should be linked to electrical and kinetical parameters and not only kinematics and geometry. So you have to take into account the kinematics, but also the masses and inertias and the forces. Well, this project was very to show the link between the predictive phenomenon and the golf movements. We developed a two-body model which have detailed shoulders and spine. We show that there is some modification of the tutor definitions, and we transmit the information with different ways, like intentional references, but also courses for coach and physiotherapists. So here was the conference for coaches we did last year. But of course, there is some limitation. The scope was quite small for showing strong tendencies, so we have to continue this kind of project. We take into account these driver swings. We did the acquisition for icons, but we haven't the time to process the data. And we have a group approach, which is kind of difficult because it should be one-by-one approach for knowing the performance. And the link with health are always difficult to show when you deal with sports. So we should think about the prospective study to show up more link between health and biomedical performance. Yeah, just some perspective. So yeah, let's go back to this drawing and just have more perspective to show what different methodology we develop into the lab. Why do we need a patient-specific approach? Because we show that with like a sensibility study, if you modify the position of the center of the articulation, for example, here for the hip, which is quite difficult to estimate, you we consider 6 different cases, like the position modified, and we show that with a small distance, small inaccuracy of 2 centimeters, which is supposed to be the inaccuracy you have with conventional methods, you have up to 20% of inaccuracies when you do this kind of approach. So meaning that we need to have a patient-specific approach, and there is a very important attention should be paid on the methodology to define, for example, the hip center, hip joint center. That's why in the lab we develop a lot of different methods. For example, we develop a functional estimation of the joint center and axis. So you do some generic movement to identify what are the real axis and center of the different joints. This is quite accurate, but it takes a long time because you have to process the entire kinematics of this kind of data over there. More interestingly, in the lab, we also used the EOS system, which is basically an imaging system, which permits, thanks to stereoradiography, to have all the bones. It's like the same, it's more or less the same technology that you use when you break a bone. You have to go to the hospital. This is this kind of technology, but it's a low radiation technology. This approach is that you use the stereoradiography, you have the 3D reconstruction over this 3D radiography, and you can have a patient-specific 3D model with this approach. And you can have so the 3D geometries of the human body, but also some clinical and physiological parameters. And what is more, the marker position of the bones, meaning that as soon as you are doing a movement analysis acquisition, you have the marker movement you measure. But actually, with this information, you will have the bone movement during the acquisition. And what we did also is to do an acquisition with the spine rotated, meaning that we can tune the function inside the lumbar spine, for example. But a patient-specific approach once again. And here, just to be more accurate into the mass and inertia acquisition, we have a body scanner, which basically measure the envelope of the subject. And we can segment this envelope to have the masses and the inertia of the subject. And I will continue with the muscle measurements. So the idea would be to have the contraction of the muscle during the movements. So you can use also the Penty model to have this, which estimate the elongation of the muscle and then estimate the forces the muscle have to do for having this movement. And the idea was to compute that and to compare it with the electromyography measurements. And one project which was performed in 2014 by Dubois was to combine the EOS acquisition with MRI to have the disposition of the different muscles with the definition of the bones, driving into a full patient-specific musculoskeletal model, which can be described also by 1D muscle model. As MRI are quite difficult to have, to perform, we also developed a methodology to use elastography and not MRI to combine with the EOS system. And so, just to be I think we used to develop some finite element modeling with patient-specific geometry thanks to EOS, and with patient-specific material components, meaning that we are able also to correlate the gray level of this stereoradiography with the Young modulus, for example, in order to have here a patient-specific geometry, but also a patient-specific material components. And leading to this kind of simulation, so you can see here there is a lot of strain and stress within the intraarticular disc. So of course, the perspective will be to take into account the health part of this project. So just to conclude, this was an example of the methodology we use, but you will use it for many sports like football, table tennis, gymnastics, running, but we also use it for understanding the matter of visual propulsion, and also to design prostheses. And there is a PhD which was performed to tune the prosthesis with machine learning acquisition, with machine learning approach, sorry, and to modify the behavior of the prosthesis according to the situation the subject was faced on. And so we validate the prosthesis with a movement analysis approach. So thank you for your attention. I hope I was not everyone is sleeping now, but thank you for attention anyway. And I would like, of course, to thank everyone who participated in this project, in particular the volunteers, of course, of this project. And so this is the 1-month tree of our lab, which is kind of an old-fashioned building. If you have any question, I will be pleased to answer. No. Yeah.
How long did it take to make the project happen?
3 years. It was a PhD project.
And why did you guys pick golf instead of, I don't know, tennis or whatever?
But actually, the golf, it seems to be a sport which can be done all your life. And so basically, the aim was to find a way to get active someone during the whole life. And basically, the problem is that as soon as you get older, the older you get, the less mobility you have. And so the idea was to find a sport which can be done by elderly people, more or less. And so you can see that there is some elderly people, but there is also a professional approach to study this sport. So this seems to be a sport interesting to study. Maybe just for the joke, this is the drawing of, how do you say that? A cartoon, I think. It's a French drawer who do some science visualization. And so she was in the lab and she was in one of our presentations. So she did this drawing for the project. Well, no more question? Okay.
Thank you, Maxime, again. Chicos, Maxime va a estar aquí un rato, hay alguna información de la escuela aquí adelante, pues si quieren preguntarle a él. Acá está la información de la escuela y también a... Gracias.